Right, what have we got today? Well, it's a Lumintop and it's a micro. It's tiny, but it might be tiny, but it's pretty good. So Lumintop, now as you know, I'm a big fan of Lumintop. One of the reasons why I like Lumintop is I've found them anyway to be highly reliable, and the workmanship on them is exceptional. I wish the paint was a little bit thicker, like the jet beams, but it's not the end of the world. They're fantastic pieces of kit. So I'm looking forward to having a look at this one, and this is in the cool white, if you're wondering what the hell that stands for. So here's the box. There's not really an awful lot on it, just the usual stuff. Yes, everything's made in China these days. So let's get into the box and I'll tell you a little bit about it. So this is the Lumintop GT Micro. Now, boosh, stick that in the bin. So micro, because if you remember, one of my last reviews was the Lumintop GT Mini. Now the GT is the giggle thrower or giga thrower. It's a massive, ridiculous light that, you know, you might want to buy if you live on an oil rig or in a lighthouse. Other than that, I can't really see a need for it. However, for more sensible sized lights, you can get the GT Mini, which is an excellent thrower. It's really good, although I mean you could make the case for it's only slightly better than the Convoy C8 Plus, which is a hell of a lot cheaper, so I'd probably go for that. I mean, the paint isn't really standing up, but who cares, it still works. So I'm a big fan of Lumintop because of the workmanship and the UIs and things like that. So it's quite interesting to see the micro here, which is even smaller than this. Now the Mini was using, I shall just remind you, an 18650 battery, which is the large lithium ion. So there's the Samsung 30Q, which I use for testing. So it's still quite a large light. I mean, it's hard to get that in your pocket, put it that way, especially with it being a thrower. All throwers tend to have a larger diameter reflector here, so it's a little bit harder to get that in your pocket unless you have this bit sticking out. So pop that to one side and we'll get back to this. So this is using the Cree XPL high LED, which is pretty standard for most of these throwers. Let's have a look what you got here. Here's the manual. Now it's probably going to be massive, so I'm not going to read it out. In fact, there you go, there it is in 5 million languages. Now as you can see, it gets quite complicated quite quickly. So we'll go through that. If you really want to read that, you can do, but I'm memorizing this. There, memorizing it. All right, memorized there, including it in Chinese or Japanese. Right, drop kick that in the bin. Let's see what we get here, because I'll go through all the things so you don't have to read the manual. You can just listen to me. What else do you get in here? So it gets the usual little bits and pieces. Chuck that in the bin. What's this? Right, so that's everything. Bin that. Right. Okay, so you get, oh nice, so you get a little split link there. Now that is to allow you to put that through the lanyard hole. So there's a little hole there, as you can see there. That's easier to see. So that allows you to put the lanyard through, or you can put your little split link through and do whatever you want. This allows you to for attachment options. Now also in here you get two O-rings. Now the O-rings just go between two machined parts with threads on. It just ensures waterproofing, because this does have a good waterproofing rating. So I'll show you where they are. They're top and bottom. So as you can see, it's threaded up here, and there's an O-ring there, which I shall show you. There's the O-ring there. I'm going to use my fingernail to move it. That's it there. And then at the bottom you also have a threaded section which uses a O-ring as well. So there's the O-ring there, you can see I'm moving it there, and then there's your threaded section. Now I'm liking the threads here. They make a little bit of noise, but they're very smooth, and it feels quite positive there. So nice to see you get a couple of spare ones in your split link. So put that to one side. Here's your lanyard. I don't really use them. This looks like a really cheap lanyard, but the smaller the light is, the less of a lanyard really you need, because you know, it feels like it's a single-walled, cheap one, not particularly good. Let's just do the strength test, because I tested one yesterday and it fell straight to bits. Yeah, I'm pulling that full force, as you can see, absolutely fine. So, fine, I don't really use lanyards. There's no cinch here where you can adjust it, but that's probably about right for most people's wrists. But again, not something I use. Unless you're flat, you know, swinging them around like a circus juggler or something like that, or attacking people on the street. Okay, so let's get on with the light here. So I'm quite looking forward to this. I mean, Size-wise, I mean, look at that. Compare that to the Mini. Here's the Mini. You obviously cannot get that in your hand, really. Not in totality anyway. You can certainly hang on to it. But this, I mean, look, you can fit the whole thing in the pot. I mean, I'm quite large. I'm 6'4", so I've got quite large hands. But that's pretty nice. It's still got the heat sinks here, which is nice to see. So I'm quite liking this. Feels solid. There's no squeak or creak or anything like that. There's your reflector. Nice. So nice work. That's a smooth aluminium reflector I think they're using there. And you can probably get into this section, can you? Nah, it's not letting me. I think that's glued down. Okay. But you can get in top and bottom. So pretty interesting. And there's your button to function. Now, you might notice here you have heat sinks. So the whole point of the heat sinks is it's supposed to dissipate heat more rapidly than just a flat surface. What you're essentially doing is you're increasing the amount of surface to get rid of heat in the air, because that's how heat sinks work. They increase surface space, surface area anyway. So as you can see, the material goes up and down, just like a radiator in a car, to increase contact with the air. It'll have an effect, but at turbo levels, don't expect this to negate the fact that this will step down, but it does have a heat activated step down. So what happens is when this gets too hot, it steps down. You shouldn't get, or I haven't had step down on the high mode, but I have on turbo multiple times because I've done a bit of testing there. The only thing that annoys me a little bit is this doesn't line up. Well, that's a bit strange, isn't it? See how you've got the label here, and when you fully screw that in, you would expect it to line up there, but it doesn't. It lines up round the back. That might annoy some people. I'm sure I'll live. I won't have any sleepless nights over that, but I'm sure some people may find that irritating. They're probably the same people who were having a go at the Army Tech review I did, where they said, "Look at all that writing all over the place. It looks like a damn advertisement." So anyway, back to this slide. So let's get a cell in. Now, before I put a cell in, I just want to discuss what cells this uses, because it uses what's called a 14500. Now, you're probably saying, what the hell's a 14500 cell? Well, really, all it is it is a AA, however, it's at a higher voltage and it uses a different chemistry. So, for example, a normal AA runs at, if this one tells you, let's have a look. Should say somewhere, made in Belgium, alkaline. This is a standard non-rechargeable alkaline. I thought it would tell you, and that's it. There you go, 1.5 volts. Okay, so if you compare that to the cells that this is using, they probably think, well, it looks exactly the same. It's still AA. It's AA in form factor only, not in function. So when it comes to function, let's look at what's saying on here. So 14500. And then if you look at the voltage, totally different, 3.7. So don't use these cells in a normal AA flashlight. And conversely, you can't use that in here, which is a little bit of a disappointment. I was hoping you could use a normal AA and it would step down to, I don't know, 200 lumens or something like that, but it doesn't, which is unfortunate. So you have to use one of these lithium-ion cells. So the one I'm going to be using is, I mean, they call it high capacity, but let's see what it is here. So it's got a max continuous discharge of about 3 amps, which is quite high. Because this uses what's called a FET driver. I mean, all a FET driver really does is it just opens the floodgates and says, "Give me what you got," to the battery, and sucks it out like a vampire at a blood bank. So with that in mind, the higher quality the cell, the more output you're getting. Now, don't think, right, well, I'll get the most expensive battery on planet Earth and then I'll get more light. You'll get a little bit more light, but remember, the faster you suck the stuff out of here, the least amount of time it lasts. So you may find, because of this size of cell, I mean, look at this one. This is only a 1000 milliamp hours. Now compare that to something like a Samsung 30Q, where you're getting 3 times that, but obviously it's bigger. So just be aware that when you're using turbo, it's getting sucked quick. Put it that way. It's So I just wanted to go over those batteries. So you can't use a normal AA, unfortunately. So let's get the cell in. So let's see what the insides look like. Well, what we've got down here, double spring, which is nice to see. So you've got a lighter one there, and well, they both seem the same sort of strength, but nice to see a double spring there, high quality. No machine marks down there, nice high quality. What about down there? You've got like a flat receptacle there for the head of the battery. looks nice. Yeah, nice piece of work there. As usual, I never have any problems when I look into the Lumintops. I don't look in and think, oh my God, who made that? So get the button top cell in there. Plenty of room there, as you can see. And we'll get that in. We'll talk about nozzle. So the UI on this is a nozzle, which I really like. Now, it gets a little bit complicated, so I'll go through it slowly. So before I do that, I'll go over some things about output. Now, it'll output up to 1,000 lumens. So there's your low, and then you hold the button and it ramps up, and there's high, and then you have a turbo, which is your highest. So I can feel the heat from that. That's quite hot there. So it's got very basic functions if you learn the UI. So 1,000 lumens from that cell isn't going to last. Just bear that in mind. I mean, I'm quite happy to see the size of this reflector. It's pretty big, bearing in mind how small this is. I mean, this is the Mini here, which has quite a large reflector. It's a little bit larger than the C8, but just slightly. And it's certainly not as big as the new Astrolux FT03 anyway. But it's big enough to do the job. It's nothing compared to that, but it's still pretty good. I mean, if you compare that to something like, here's the Zanflare F1, which is a thrower at 1,000 lumens-ish. But look, much bigger reflector, so that's going to do a better job throwing, in my opinion. You can see the same about, let's have a look. We've got the Follow-Off EDC, again another smooth reflector thrower, but again this is going to be better. It's bigger, it's a bigger diameter. It's about 29 millimeters, I think, off the top of my head. Okay, so I just want to quickly, and I'll do this rapidly because I know people get irritated, but I'll rapidly discuss the reflector. So normally you have your circuit board here with your LED on, and you can have a little plastic dome over. Now light normally comes out all willy-nilly and goes all over the shop and isn't particularly directable. So because this is a thrower, what it's attempting to do is it's saying, I'm going to take that available light and try and fire it forward. Now, without the ability to use a laser beam or something like that, because that's a different type of light emission. What you're going to try and do is steer this light to a degree anyway. So one method for that is, over the top, you put a reflector. So in this case, as you can see, there's the LED right down the bottom there, that square thing. And then you have this smooth reflector. So can you see, it's just like a big smooth bowl. So what's happening there? Okay, well there's your smooth reflector, and there's the LED at the bottom. What happens is you get light from the LED, which is what we call spill, and then that hits the wall like that. And then you also have, this bounces and directs light, and you get what's called a spot. So when it hits the wall, it looks kind of like a fried egg, really. So I shall quickly show you that. So if I turn this on, so there you go. So you've got your spill here, which is this region here. Spill, that's direct from the LED, and this is your spot. This is the port, this is the section where you're trying to fire the light out. You're trying to get it to reach across a field or down a beach or something like that. Now the problem is it obscures detail. Can you see? Total obscuring detail there. I mean, one way around that is you decrease the output, but even at the decreased output there, I've decreased that there and I'm holding it back, it's still obscuring detail. So up close, these aren't necessarily the best. Generally for up close, you want to try something like, if I've got one knocking about, there's one, you're probably better off with something like an orange peel reflector. So it uses a similar idea, but can you see how that's certainly not smooth, is it? So in difference to that, it's similar, but it's got pits and aberrations on. Now it smooths this out, so when it hits the wall, yes, you've got your spill and your spot, but there's something of a transition zone there. I'll quickly show you that. So here's the S2 Plus by Convoy. So can you see how, yes, you've got your spill and spot, but the spot certainly isn't obscuring the TrailTrek words here. It's certainly not perfect, and a TIR would be perfect for up close, but I'm not going to go into that on this review. So I just want to explain that. Medium range, you may be better off with something like a orange peel reflector light, whereas this is specifically a thrower. It's got a large diameter reflector, 29 millimeters. It's designed to throw light away. So if you're trying to change a fuse box or something, it's less ideal. Although to get around that, you ramp all the way down there, all the way down, hold it up what you're doing very close, and you can get away with that. So I just wanted to quickly go over that. I know people get annoyed and say, hey, why you keep going over that? Well, I keep going over that because 90% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribers, so they appreciate that, and they do send me messages saying thank you very much for covering that. Okay, so let's quickly go through the UI. I'll do it as quickly as I can. Uses Nozzle 1.3 on this one, which is the UI. UI just means user interface, so it's how you interact with the light. There's no screen on these things, so how do you interact with them? Well, what you do is, right, so you've got on and off. Seems pretty simple, doesn't it? Now this is a ramping interface. So if I hold the button, it goes up to maximum, that's high. Now you may or may not see, I'll do that again, there's a momentary flicker. There it is. It's hard to see on camera, and that is a visual cue to the user to say you've just hit the highest setting there. And if I hold again, it ramps down again. So there's your lowest mode. Almost you could call that like a 1 or 2 lumen moonlight mode, or fireflies, depending on the manufacturer. And you can use that to do up close stuff, read a map or something. Although with a thrower, it always looks a bit brighter because it's focusing the light there. So there's your lowest mode. And then you hold it and it goes right up to, that's probably about 800, 850, 900. And then if you double click, I mean, it's going to depend on the battery because of the FET driver, but double click is slightly brighter still, and that should hit close to 1,000 depending on the cell. You get at least 900 on that anyway. 950 to 1,000. So that's pretty light, and like I say, that's going to wipe the cell out pretty quickly though. So there's your main modes. You've got your ramping mode up and down, then 2 clicks for turbo. Now 3 clicks is battery check. So 1, 2, 3. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So what it's doing there is, so 4 flashes and 1 flash. What does that mean? It's flashing out the voltage of the battery. Now most users know that a fully charged battery, lithium ion, you're looking at around, it depends on the cell, but general, we'll talk about a Samsung 30Q, for example. Full charge, you're going to get a 4.2 volt from that, and then its lowest about 2.5, 2.6 when it's starting to cut out and die. So it's showing you the voltage of the battery. So I know that if that's 4.1, it's virtually full, because 4.2 is full. Sometimes I prefer a percentage readout on battery checks, but that's very technical. In this instance, which is fine, and most users of this are going to be technical. They're using a 14500 battery, and it's got a custom UI. It's probably not going to be given to someone who's not a flashaholic, especially bearing in mind it doesn't use normal AEs. They're probably not going to understand that. So that's fine. Battery check's fine. You also have what's called an E-lockout. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you see you get the little flashes there. So now it won't function. It won't go off automatically in your pocket by accident, because I've had that happen with lights where you go camping and they accidentally knock on and high, and then you get the camp and you try and go for a pee and your lights bust. Doesn't work, and you've got to try and scrounge batteries off your friends. So if you want to unlock that, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're back to normal. There you go. Now the other way around that is to use a physical lockout. So a physical lockout, all it does is it tampers with the circuit. So you're breaking the circuit. So to do that, you just, there you go. Now it won't work. And then you re-engage the circuit. See the little flash there? That tells you that's ready. There's your little LED running lights, ready. There, and you're back on again. So you've got 2 options there. You've got a physical lockout, which always works, but it's a bit of an irritation. And then you've got a nice UI-based E-lock, which is 4 clicks. You also have 5 clicks, which turns into a momentary or a tactical mode. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Get some little flashes there. So now what it means is it's either on at full or off. There's only 2 modes. It's almost like a muggle mode anyway, but it's tactical because it's high. So interesting. Now you can't turn that off. You can't do another 5 clicks and turn it off. So you need to disengage the circuit. There you go. You see the little light went out. Re-engage, and you're back to normal ramping UI. So very interesting. There is another setting. You can factory reset it. Off the top of my head, it's something like you triple click, then you double click, then you double click, then you hold, and then that factory resets it. But you shouldn't need to do that anyway, unless you've been mucking with the advanced settings. I'm not going to go through the advanced settings on this video because it takes too long. There's millions and millions of settings. If you really want to see anything like that, strobe settings and things like that, you may be better off going onto my advanced config video for the Astrolux S43 or something like that, which goes on about Nozzle. It shows you how to use the UI to go into advanced settings and shows you the feedback of the light, informing the user where you are within these secret menus. So I'm not going to cover that on this video. You have another mode, which is strobe, because you're probably thinking, where's the strobe? If I'm going to be attacked by a ninja in the night, how am I going to defend myself? Well, for strobe, what you do is you double click, and then you double click again. Now I'll cover that because I don't want to irritate people. Now it's in strobe mode, so you're probably thinking, well, are there sub-strobe modes? Well, there are. Now, in order to get to them, I can't get to them right now because strobe's already engaged and it's been engaged for more than 1.2 seconds. What on earth was that mouthful about? Well, let me explain. So double click, then double click again gets you to strobe. It will continue to do the strobe. However, in order to go through the strobe modes, you need to press the button to go forward through the modes by not letting it go onto strobe for more than a second. So I'll show you that. So double click again, and then you're in strobes, and then you can see how I'm going through the modes there. There's different flashing modes there, and I'm going through them all, and then we're back to normal. So there are separate modes there, but you've got your main strobe, which is absolutely fine. I've got no problems with that. So I quite like this light. I love Narsil, and I really like Lumintop. They're never a disappointment. I mean, the only light you could really compare this with, because it uses the same cell, is the Lumintop AA. This is the V2, which I think is absolutely fantastic. It's a fantastic light, and this is also using the 14500. I'll just prove that there. There you go, 14500. It's using a slightly less milliamp hour battery there, and this is a 3.7. But it's quite interesting that these are both by Lumintop, and they're both fantastic lights. I highly rate this. It's great just to clip onto jeans or the toolbox or anything like that. In fact, if I've got one knocking about, if you've got something like a Leatherman, it's just a perfect size to go with a Leatherman on a pouch. You can attach it to your pouch like that. It really works. And this probably not as much because it's going to be harder, but still small enough where you could technically attach that if you had a stretchy enough side attacher. So it's quite interesting. I mean, you're going to get a similar sort of output, similar anyway. This is also a smooth reflector, which is interesting, but it's very small, so you're not going to get the throw. And because this, if you notice the deepness of the reflector, you see, massive difference. This is really trying to throw, whereas this is going to give you more of a spready throw, because it's more for up close work. But it's still bright. I mean, look, it goes right up in the brightness stick. So there's that one, and there's that one on turbo. So very similar, but as you can see, the angle's slightly wider there. I'm going to leave this running because I want to check the heat step down. So I have had this step down a few times, but where's my heat sensor? There it is. So what we shall do is we'll get the temperature sensor on it. What have we got at the minute? Right, 35. Now there's an ambient temperature about 24 degrees, so that's the air temperature in here. Now we're coming up to nearly 40 degrees. I'm guessing that about 45 this should step down, 50, but we'll see. So that's running on turbo there. So as I've discussed, heat step down is only going to come into effect on the highest level, which is the turbo. So let's see what the temperature is doing now. So we're already up to 40, and it doesn't seem to have stepped down yet. Still going. It's probably not until it hits about 45 or 50. I'll keep going though. And we got step down there, so I'll turn that off. Right, so step down occurred at about 42.7. Now bear in mind that's the temperature of the outside. That's going to be hotter inside, so it's probably about 45 degrees. Now that feels pretty hot. So that will have stepped down there. That's absolutely fine. So that's a pretty decent step down. 40 plus is certainly within the normal realms of flashlights, and I think it does a really good job. That FET driver really pulls out some juice from that battery. It really is a decent thrower. I quite like this. So let's go through some of the pros and cons. So pros, I mean, you get two tint choices. I mean, I went for the cool white, but there's also a neutral white. The reason I went for the cool white is I prefer neutral white, but I like to try different tints because I need to understand and see what the different tints look like on lights. You probably think, what's the difference between a cool white and a neutral white? Well, cool white is closer to the light you'll see on an overcast or cold day. And neutral white is closer to sunlight, because sunlight's white anyway, but as it travels through space, once it hits the Earth's atmosphere and travels through the atmosphere and hits the ground, by the time it's got there, it's got almost like a yellowy tint. Now what that means is you'll associate yellowy tint with a warm day, and ice white and cool white, I mean, the clue's in the name, cool white. It's associated with colder weather. It's up to you though. I mean, generally with a thrower, you're probably better off going for a neutral white, especially at higher levels, because you get less backscatter. All backscatter is, it means the beam itself is less visible, so it's obscuring the spot less on the target. I don't want to go too far into that, and I know somebody else mentioned it helps with reflective surfaces, but because I don't know enough about that, I'm certainly not going to start discussing that. So neutral white may be better for a thrower, in my opinion. So I like that. I like the build quality because it's Lumintop. I've always highly rated them. They're always fantastic. Uses nozzle, which I really like. It throws extremely well. I mean, I tested against the Mini and did a pretty decent job actually, and obviously not as good, but you know, because of the diameter here, but still did a pretty decent job. It's powerful for its size, and it's very small. I mean, I can't actually get that in my pocket. I've tried various pockets and it's good. I mean, downsides, you could say, well, it would be nice if you could use a normal AA if you were, you know, because not everyone's going to have a load of 14500s, and you might think, oh, I haven't got a battery or it's not charged, I'll just put a AA. You can't, it won't work. That would have been nice to see. Maybe just put one of these in and it runs at a really stepped down rate of, say, I don't know, 150 or 200 or something like that. So it's a little bit of a shame. And the only other thing is, obviously, because of the size of the cell, compare that milliamp hours, 800 to 1000 on most of the 14500s, compare that to like 3500 on the decent 18650s. It means that this is going to suck out the battery very fast, unfortunately. So don't expect massive long run times. I did preliminary testing and it wrecks the battery quite quick, but it doesn't mean you've got to use turbo, does it? You can ramp it down, so you've got that option. So I just want to show you a couple of quick comparisons. I mean, obviously here's the main one. I'll probably go for this. If you were only allowed one thrower, I'd definitely go for this. 3 times the capacity at least because of the battery. Slightly bigger reflector, and it does a fantastic job. That'll be my opinion on that. However, you could go for something cheaper. I mean, these are, you know, the Zanflare F1 here or the Fulham-Off. Obviously, they're using larger batteries. I mean, the comparison I'm making here isn't on batteries, but it's on the reflector type. These are both smooth reflectors, just like this. You know, you could say, well, just go and get a C8, but again, it's bigger. You're using a bigger cell, but you get the bigger long run times. And you certainly can't compare it to something like the FT03, which is absolutely massive in comparison. So its only major competitor is something with a larger battery or the same cell using, but different sort of usage case. I mean, it's much smaller. You haven't got this huge head to contend with. You're not going to get to throw it quite as far because it hasn't got a deep bowl there, but they both use the same battery. So what you've got to ask yourself is, what's the light for? If it's for throwing, you're probably better off getting something like that, which is bigger. If it isn't particularly for throwy, but you might want that throwability, you may be better off getting something like the Tool AA and saving yourself a little bit of size in the pocket. But as a standalone light on its own, I'm going to have to give this a mark because I think it does a good job. There's a lot of positives, and really there aren't a lot of negatives other than, yes, it sucks the battery fast, but you know, that's life, and you can't run a AA, but again, that's life. That's not what it's designed for. So really, I can't have a go at them. For its size and for what it's doing and achieving at its size with a nice UI, I'm going to have to give it a 9. I have to. It's very difficult to mark this down on anything. I mean, you could say, well, what about a tail clicker? But no, then you can't tail stand. So there's pros and cons with everything. I think they could improve this, maybe match that up with the button. What else? No, I think that other than that, it does a fantastic job. 9, I think it's heartily deserved. 9 out of 10. Well done, Lumintop. Another classic. Good work. Anyway, let's get outside. Enough of me waffling.